Welcome to Bite Size MTG, guys. This is Boros Swain coming to you directly from the Bite Size editing bay. Zach's out and about doing holiday stuff, so we're going to be filling in. We're going to be handling the intros, the outros, and giving you some updates on some events that you can take some of the skills you've been learning on the channel and go put them out and practice in the wild. Today we've got a VarrakS Part 2, talking with Zach about politics, so we're going to be having two yappers yap about yapping, so that way you guys can learn to yap while you yap. There's some really cool insights for you guys to take from this conversation that you can apply to your games that you can then maybe come and play some games at the following events. First up, we've got Take the Crown, part of the Crowning Achievements series that me and Benamar, a friend of mine, have been putting on together as part of the BFF cEDH initiative that we've been doing together. The date is going to be January 3rd in Pasadena. We're trying to make this a gold event, so if you guys are in the area and just, want to get away from the relatives right after the New Year's celebrations, come on out and start the year off right with some good old cEDH. The next one that me and Zach are planning on going to is going to be the Cosmic Crown Championship up in Lompoc, California. This one's going to be on January 17th and 18th, 2-day event, so that's going to be a lot of fun. This one's hosted by Root Dude Gaming and Mana Mart. And as far as I understand, if we hit cap, we're looking at a 10K prize pool. I'm really looking forward to going up there and mixing up with some of the SenCal people and see what their meta is like. Directly after that one, we've got Breach the Bay. This one's going to be January 24th in Daly City, California. This one's hosted by one of our sponsors, Doot Loot and Merline Gaming. So you know the pricing is going to be really good. I'm really excited about this one. I think food is included on the ticket price for this one. So it's just like, I'm a sucker for food, so I'll be there. It's going to be really exciting. Get to see what some of the Bay Area cEDH meta is going to be like. And yeah, I'm just really excited for how January is really shaping up for a really good chance for West Coast to show out and show its colors. So let's represent well, guys, and let's just have some fun. Lastly, we've got one that's a little further out. We're very excited about this one and a little nervous. It's called The Atrium. It's going to be on March 28th and the 29th. This one's going to be brought to you by BFF cEDH, so me and Ben again. And it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the guys at the Lost Level Card Shops. These guys are awesome. We hosted a gold event at their place recently, and it went super well, and we're just excited. These guys are great. They play cEDH, they care a lot about the community that they're growing, so we are more than excited to partner with these guys and try to bring some plat level tournaments to Southern California so we can just really celebrate the players here. It's going to be a really fun time, 2-day event. We're still trying to figure out how we can add more and more to this thing, but come on out, have a fun time. And I believe almost all of the tournaments that we've said so far are also worth not only top deck points, but also SoCal circuit points. So if you're grinding that and looking forward to the invitationals for the SoCal circuit, these are some really good opportunities to really get your name on the board. I know that was a lot of information all at once, guys, but that just means that we have a lot of great places to practice some of the skills that we're learning on the channel here. So without further ado, let's get to the episode. Take it away, Zach.
You want to do some taps. Tip tap away. Do some tip taps.
Tippity tappity toe. This is how cEDH goes.
And that's the intro.
Oh god! Oh, I didn't even see that.
All engines start. Welcome back to Bite Size Magic. Today I have Kevin Simmons, or VarrakS, back with me again to chat about politics and cEDH and really develop kind of what we talked about in the first episode into some cool in-game scenarios and real ways that you can kind of actually make yourself better instead of just listening to us yap for an hour and a half. So, welcome, Kevin.
See, Konnichiwa.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I think in that first episode, which funnily enough just came out today, so that shows you how ahead we are on all of our stuff. But we kind of laid foundations. We were like, this is how we're thinking about cEDH. This is how we interpret authentic gameplay and authentic politics and how it can really help you to become the best version of yourself in this game. And now we kind of want to build upon that and really give people, like I said, the concrete ways that they can improve how they're doing their thing.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be back. Getting a little bit of a series going here. And I love the first conversation and very excited to build upon it and see where this takes us, right? So
me too. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome first episode, by the way. If you guys hadn't listened, we were talking right beforehand, like both getting to listen to it same day of recording. I feel so zoned in to the conversation already. So if you haven't already, definitely go check that one out.
Yeah, you will not understand anything we talk about in this episode if you don't watch that one first. So you'll be like, mumbo jumbo, terminology.
Yeah. Last
Yeah.
spoiler check, everybody.
Right. Yeah. Almost impossible to watch this without watching the first one. Anyway, so I want to kick us off with this idea of emotional intelligence, because it was something that we had a lot of people kind of commenting about. And I really do think like it isn't really talked about that much. Like politics at the end of the day is who can be the most emotionally aware of the table, who can make the most logical threat assessment, obviously, but it's really about like getting your point across. So do you think emotional intelligence is something that can be learned? And if you're a player who might struggle with this a little bit, where might you point someone to go to say, like, here's how you can improve this part of your game?
Yeah. Okay. So I think first and foremost, it can absolutely be learned. And if you feel differently, just take a look at your local play groups. View it historically speaking, your own opponents and yourself and how you guys have all grown into your own patterns. Those are all learned things.
Mhm.
And so like emotional intelligence specifically is not one that's, I think, trained for a lot of people in natural settings. But then within the game, it's pretty vital. If anything, I'd argue that it is the most valuable resource to have that emotional intelligence in your game style. Where to learn? I feel like, I don't know, DM Zach Adler for cEDH coaching.
I appreciate that. I feel like just being with people who, I don't know, like emotional intelligence for me, like if we're defining terms here, is increasing your awareness. Like for regular intelligence might be how many inputs can I take in and then create an output, like how quick can I solve a math problem, or what's my general knowledge of something. And emotional intelligence is, I'm taking in all these inputs from people around me, and I need to interpret those quickly and then output my responses and be like, okay, this person wants to be talked to more like this, or this person is not going to respond well by me yapping at them all game, and it's a little esoteric, but I do believe it's something that if you choose to, you can totally learn. Like even a YouTube search of like, how could I increase my emotional intelligence? Or by reading a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, which is something that Kevin brought up to this. And I totally agree. I really love that book, and it has made me a much better communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that one's just a banger in general. So,
Truly a banger.
it's one of those.
Shout out Dale.
That's absolutely
Earnhardt
right.
and Carnegie.
Yes, whole family, really, honestly.
Yeah,
But
all the Dales.
I think there's a few things that most people like would benefit from in terms of books, but then also like in practices. One of them could be like serving tables at a restaurant. Another could be reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And the main point of that book is actually super counterintuitive to the cEDH standard of just yapping and being good car salesmen back in the 80s, right? So
yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
And some practical things like off the dome, like we said, being a little more aware. So when you're in these maybe stressful games, just being able to kind of sit back, and we're going to talk about this more, kind of being a spectator in your own games, kind of a preview. So if you would, but being aware of your games in a way that you can step back and stop talking the whole time and just be like, all right, I'm just going to sit and listen for a little bit here and try and read some vibes of the table and understand where people are coming from. Second thing would be just check out a couple books. We spend so much time watching content on cEDH, and yet, like Kevin said, being emotionally intelligent might be one of the most important things you could do to make yourself better at this game. So I know it's not always easy to read a book. In fact, it's quite difficult for some of us, me included. But audiobooks exist, so you can go that route. And then the third thing is just having some awareness in game, like we said, and really sitting with something and letting it stew and letting yourself kind of reflect on it. Some of the things I'm looking for in game when it comes to this sort of level of emotional intelligence is I'm reading tone and body language a lot. And this is somewhat subconscious, but if you sit back and look at it, you can kind of see like, is someone talking really fast? Does that mean that they're going to jam? Or even in early games, like when we start to sit down with people, do they feel like nervous? Is it like, are they like not really making eye contact? Like I try to introduce myself to people if I've never met them before. Like it's a good way to like start a conversation off where you're like, hey, I'm Zach, like nice to meet you. You can have a little chat about their deck. You can gain information that way, like you're playing against a Sisay and you're like, oh, is that a clam chowder build? Like, I hope it is. I want to see some Sisay Nas action. And they're like, no, just traditional Sisay. And it helps you create some banter, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. The icebreakers, if you will, of cEDH, I think are ones that can really take you quite a far way, even like you mentioned when you're just sitting down to the table initially. But also, I think that they're almost double-edged swords to where I've mentioned actually in our last episode that my style personally feels, and like the way I view cEDH is almost like it's a theatrical performance, right? I think that when your performance is a little bit sour or less rehearsed, less emotionally intelligent, if you will, that it can actually be taken poorly. This is a prime example would be, oh, what does your deck do? Or, oh, he's the threat, he's the threat. The more stale, saying the same things that everybody says, as opposed to a lesson from Win Friends and Influence People, which is actually showing genuine interest. So like applying genuine curiosity to something, allowing people to feel like their voice is valued, allowing people to feel like they're respected, and then more than that, just like allowing them an opportunity to feel understood, right? That's like the whole book. So I think
Kevin Simmons, Dale Carnegie, same guy, Batman.
Rockside. But yeah, like I think a lot of that could actually just be questions around, like, instead of just, oh, who's your commander? It can almost be starting a conversation with the community of that one table at a time, right? Like, oh, have you guys played against this? What's your experience against my deck? You know, a lot of these types of questions, like, as long as they're not just routine, mandatory, preliminary things, you know, it's a difference of someone showing up to their 9 to 5 and then the other person that's like running a whole business for themselves. The passion levels need to be somewhere towards the latter on those.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And in tournaments, I think, you know, I've struggled with this before where it's like sometimes tournaments at first when I was playing them felt totally different from casual play. Like I loved casual. I was like having so much fun. And then I'd get into a tournament and I'd like tense up and I'd be like, I got to win this game. I got to win this game, you know, got to convert. And now it's like, I don't care. Like the tournaments are now more fun than casual games because people, like we said in the last episode, take it much more seriously. Like they're really there and they're really competing and you feel like, you know, casual is super authentic, obviously, but tournament play, you like everything really comes out. Like you see who someone really is when there's money on the line and reputation and all that kind of stuff. And it feels exciting. Like it's really fun to do it in that setting.
It is. But I think what's most interesting about that is both the competitive spike and the, you know, wanting to just be a good player or just like a good in the sense of having an enjoyable time. All roads lead to Lauderdale here, meaning I think the bottom
is that somewhere in Ohio
requires. No, actually, I think it's in Florida.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Fort Lauderdale, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
ADHD is spiking.
Right. Okay, boomer. Okay, Ohioan.
Yeah.
No, but like what I'm saying there is that. I think the bottom line for the correct or best thing to do in this essence would be to just zoom out from the table and entirely emotionally remove yourself. I think the best way to do this is to record your own games. And if you, the listener, or Zach yourself, if you hate taking selfies, pictures of yourself, or having other people take pictures of yourself like I do, it's the same exact thing watching yourself play cEDH for the first couple times. It is cringe, but boy, will you learn how to effectively communicate with people.
Yeah, you're like, why the fuck did I just say that? That sounds terrible. Who is this guy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yep. This was, for me, kind of like a little bit of a harsh awakening because I didn't record games of myself until I watched some like footage from events that I was like a stream table. And one particular event last year was Cradle to the Guild, where I had taken a couple shots before a round and I hadn't eaten because I don't eat on you know, tournament days. And so I was misplaying. I was missing my triggers. I'm reading chat, and they're just like, "This guy is fucking cheating. Like, you know, ban him. Like, get him out of here. He's missed 3 Lotho triggers this game. You know." And I'm like, "Yeah. Oh no, shit." It was hard. It was really hard to do, to like watch myself, you know, not play super well, and it inspired me to try not to, you know, get buzzed before important games and save that for after the tournament, but B, also just to be like, okay, if I'm watching this, like in game, you can kind of take yourself out of the game and put yourself into spectator mode, you know, and it's really useful to do.
Spectator mode, I think, is the best way to describe what we're talking about, especially because, and I've seen it happen at events, both for myself, but with most other people, this is a common thing, actually, where you have those round one jitters, but then after the fact, you're just so locked in. But I don't actually believe that it's simply the round one jitters. I think it's the observation of other tables in between rounds that also massages that comfortability a little bit. When you're viewing other tables, you're able to quickly, or even viewing the stream, it's people so quickly will find your 3 missed Lotho triggers or read any YouTube comments on playing with power videos. People find stuff. After the round one jitters, which is actually not just round one jitters, but I think another way that gets massaged is by players being able to walk around and spectate other pods. During that spectation, like every player is able, not everyone, but most are much more quickly able to recognize missed triggers. They're able to recognize weird things, strange deals, letter of the deal versus word of the deal, as I've heard you mention, right?
Yeah.
This is so much easier to view from a third-party standpoint than when you're personally, emotionally engaged. As humans, totally the human side of cEDH, we're all making these choices based off of how things make us feel, even though we're trying to be as logical as possible. In reality, it's somewhere in between, though.
Yeah, it's like you're watching a stream of a tournament and you're like, this fucking idiot just misplayed their nods. Like they just missequenced their breach line. And you're like, they must suck. If I was in this game, I would be winning right now. So it's really easy. Or like in MMA fights, you're like, I could beat that guy up. I could totally beat that guy up. If I was in there right now, I would be winning this. But yeah, we were able to separate ourselves emotionally, like you said, when we can when it's not our game, you know, when we're able to sit in this bird's eye view and look at everything that's going on and react to it unemotionally and just say, oh, like weird. Like I'm looking at this guy's hand and I see like he can just win right now. Like I don't understand why he's not pushing. Or, you know, he's at 7 life and he has a Lotho. Like if he doesn't kill that thing soon, he's just going to die. And you're able to remove yourself. And so learning how to do that in game, I think is probably a pretty underrated strategy. Do you have any recommendations or like tactics that you use to create spectator mode for yourself?
Yeah, so the first one's just like what we were talking about, actually spectating yourself, watching games back where maybe you were on stream or just hitting record on your spell table games perhaps, and then watching things back. I think the other is where your play group comes into the light a little bit here. Just ask your friends, hey guys, how was this perceived? How did I make you feel at the critical moments in which you felt maybe the game slipped away from you or you were able to choke it out? Whatever. Like I think that's another really good idea in how to enter spectator mode. Lastly, I think just trying to keep a constant checking of yourself is really important. So in professional gaming, like you'll listen to pro players talk about avoiding tilt. That's a really big thing, and it just gamers across the board. I think
tilt
the vast
patterns,
majority of the cringe tilt patterns come from when things are unrecognized and just like out of the cage. So having the ability to know how to put it back in the cage and untilt yourself from round to round, because which is very possible, by the way. Tournaments are long commitments, so
they are.
It's real easy to get tilted in round 1 or round 2, especially while so much is on the line. But being able to claw back in with some of the good vibes, even if it's just something as simple as clinging in to some of the valuable conversation that you're taking away from the first point that we were talking about around interesting questions and getting conversations flowing, that's a way that you can claw out of or put the tilt back in the cage.
Yes, could not agree more. Yeah. So I'll respond to kind of what you were saying here. Number 1, recording your own games. This is going to be hard to rewatch, but it's also going to be like if you're going to watch games on YouTube, it's going to serve you so much better to watch your own games. Like that's actual live practice or like live awareness of what you're doing. So I couldn't recommend that more. If you don't know how to do that, check out OBS. It's a really easy tool to record your games. You can watch like a video on it and you should be able to do that pretty easily. The second part that we talked about, which is having your play group involved, right? Like asking them beforehand, a good way to do this is to prime them. Be like, hey guys, I want to set up a game where we're all paying a little more attention to the like how we're feeling in this game or how we're hearing each other politic, and then take notes during the game or after the game. Let's debrief and really talk through this and be like, hey, I noticed you were doing this here, and I thought that when you said this, it didn't really make sense and it kind of fucking annoyed me. And then for the rest of the game, I was like, I'm not giving you shit. And then you're like, I didn't even know that I did that, right? Because a lot of this stuff is hard to gauge. Like you might not read that someone got pissed off by you mentioning something, or by like bowmastering their dork when someone else drew from a heuristic study.
Communication blunders is a really interesting thing. You can witness it in many cEDH pods, even in casual or in tournament. A lot of times it happens when there's a harsh response to a generic question. A lot of times it can happen when there's a dumb question asked. By the way, i.e. a dumb question is, are you trying to win on your turn on turn 5?
Yeah.
Bruh.
No.
You lose a rapid and large amount of respect from, and this goes against that Dale Carnegie idea of making people feel valued, respected, right? Mm-hmm. So it's interesting though, like witnessing them a lot of times can also happen when people are going, well, I'm just not going to answer something because I don't think that hidden information is good to reveal to you. Mm. Your opponent or the person originally asking that question can then take that and say, okay, well, fuck this guy. He thinks I'm an idiot. Fuck me. No, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
This is human nature, baby. This is how we roll. So avoiding those is another way. I would also say, lastly, that there is a little bit of spectator mode that can actually happen within a game. But this has to be done incredibly sensitively, and the opponent that you're doing it with has to be open to it. So asking for permission on things a lot of times and then accepting the answer is the only way that I've had real success in doing this in game. This could look like something where Zach and I may be in a pod. We might be going back and forth and he's like, well, show me your hand and I'll take care of this problem. And I'm like, bro, no, that's ridiculous. Like, no. And I feel it's a stupid question. He feels it's a terrible position and we can't see from any vantage point outside our own. To enter spectator mode, you need to first identify it, which is a part of building emotional intelligence, is slowing things down in this way. So by identifying it, your second step can then become, we need to get out of this blunder. So maybe a question such as, and by the way, guys, I'm a big fan of questions. Questions in general are going to be a repeated answer to a lot of this. Yes. One of the next topics, that's the whole reason it's like, ask better questions next, right?
Yeah. Real quick, I just wanted to shout out the sponsor for today's video. Doot Loot is the best place to get rare Japanese, Russian foils, signed and altered cards. They have a huge growing community with over 2,000 members on Discord that you can join right now. They do monthly giveaways and they even do giveaways on our channel. So make sure to go support Doot. I have a huge collection of Japanese and Russian foils and he's always the first place I go. Secondly, I want to shout out Mana Vault Proxies. They're a US-based proxy company and they help make this game more affordable so that you can play based on your skill level and not just the size of your wallet. I would not be playing this game if it weren't for proxies, so I love what Mana Vault is doing. They're even offering 5% off if you use the code SNACK at checkout. Without further ado, keep enjoying the video.
A question in this situation could look like, Zach, can I just slow this down and try to really understand a little bit better? The tonality is important, the delivery, the authenticity. If he's like, no, then you're like, all right, we need to back out. We just need to back out. And then at this point, a lot of fault or responsibility for the outcome of the game might just have to fall on opponent. The portion that can't fall on you is, again, that performance of pausing in game, asking permission, and then should you say, what are you thinking? Be like, where am I having to do this in your mind's eye, or in your mind, how is it that this is the only positive outcome for you? Right. By answering that question, it's going to allow me to better understand you, and we're going to slowly bridge that gap and reach a favorable outcome for both.
I thought that was really well put, Kevin. I like how you talked about that. The only thing I'd add is, like, in those moments where you are like stepping out of the game, you're kind of like breaking the fourth wall, where you're like, we're having this in-game discussion, but like, let's pause for a second, like slow yourself down, take a breath, look the person in the eye, and have this, more sort of, it's not necessarily out of game, but it's like, hey, like I feel like, we're not quite communicating right now on the level that I want us to be. And I think you're saying this, but I also need us to have a little bit more nuance here and understand each other a little bit better, right? So kind of the taking yourself out of the game or putting yourself into spectator mode with an opponent, right?
Yeah, and if nothing else, cling to that idea of spectator mode. I like the way you put it, breaking the fourth wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of my like personality traits almost is Deadpool-esque, where it's like,
Yeah.
we're just kind of bullshitting like through and joking through a lot of the game, where like the attempt on breaking that fourth wall isn't taken very practically, but in
Yeah.
this instance, I think it's huge.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, let's talk about how this begins. How do we start a game of cEDH? Because like we said, when you enter into this game, you have to begin somewhere. And generally that is happening in a pregame discussion. And I think that, maybe you can expand on what the areas of this you see are, but it is up to you to set the tone and to make sure that you're able to not be completely tilted into the universe by someone who is going to be not doing this pregame discussion with you, or by someone who thinks that they're going to be able to set the tone instead of you. And so if we go into a game where we're super, we had a bad game, it was maybe like a forced draw and we're kind of pissed off, we can come into this game and view it as a unique singular experience and reset and say, this is a new game of cEDH. This does not exist in this tournament. I'm just here to play this game. And that's all that matters right now.
Yeah, and well, on that exact topic of games, in a multiplayer political format that cEDH exists as, there a lot of times will be sub games, almost like the game of chicken. I've heard it explained previously, where in sub games people want to push their narrative or prerogative to the limit, and then see if you're gonna say chicken or if you're going to try to double down, and then who else is gonna double down, right? And so it's really drawing that limitation. I think it can, on where your limit is on these sub games, it can also help you remain focused and in more of that flow state within your pod.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I think there's quite a few sub games, but the pregame is the first of these sub games, right? It's the initial one that really gets the juices flowing. It starts the banter in a pod, and a pregame can either be like super analytical where you all sit down at the table, no one's talking, you're just like, put my commanders out, first 7, second 7, any pregame actions. Or it can be like, hi, my name is this, nice to meet you, cool commander, I've never played against this, have you played against that? No. Oh, great. Just so you know, They might win on turn 2. Not saying they will, but I've been got before. You can set so much more positive energy in these pregame discussions just by doing what we've talked about, which is being genuinely interested in your opponents. Like, think about these people in this game. Like, the way I think about it is like, there's a great chance I'm going to play anyone I play in cEDH again. And so I want to make friends. I want to, have positive experiences with them the next time. So I'm going to take the energy to meet them and to at least try and know their name, so that in game I can be like, hey, Jeffrey, like, should we interact here? Instead of just, hey, fucking blue farm player sitting across from me,
You're right. I think you touched on something there really important. And that is that setting the intention and the vibe, ultimately it falls on you, the player, and then acting on that intention and really just more so understanding how your opponents have a preference to be communicated with. So this is the idea, I think, because some people will hear that and think, okay, so I just need to ask people about their commanders, and I just need to ask people about their play style and ask them, hey man, how you feeling with an Adnals on the stack? Like, that's not going to work all the time, right?
Yeah.
For some people, it will. Like, if you said that to me, I'm going to start laughing and I'm going to think, yeah, okay, you got it, right? But other people might get seriously tilted by that. So a big part of this pregame discussion on where this is going to start, where this is going to lead to, is taking that information that you essentially are mining and then utilizing that moving forward into the next steps of emotional intelligence.
It's like a vibe check, big vibe check to begin the game, feel out the people you're playing with, like understand, this is a great time to be like, who is going to be an ally in this game and who's going to be someone who I might not be able to work with as well? And why might I not be able to work with them? Like, what about my personality isn't quite clicking with them? And I think the more you play, the more you can kind of understand these sort of dynamics, and they become more second nature. Like, I'm not sitting down at a table and I don't have this checklist of things like, oh, I got to do all these different things. And, if I don't understand what I'm doing in this pod, I'm going to completely like fuck over myself. It's all just like, this is how I enjoy playing the game. Like, I want to do these things. I want to meet my opponents. I want to understand what their commanders do. I want them to understand what each other's commanders do, so we don't lose to Ral on turn 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think a great example of this actually in finding out who your ally is and who your enemies are going to be can happen just from the command zone and understanding the cEDH archetypes. A good example for me that came to mind was the 2024 Open, actually, the finals pod where there was Brian Koval and myself, both on VarrakS, followed by a blue farm, Jake, and then Ducky, who was on a hard Esper stacks deck. Immediately, Brian Koval and I realize we are aligned. We are allies in this. We're simply allies because we don't need to figure out and learn a whole bunch from what your actual want is in this game. We both just want to combo, kill, turbo, dead our opponents, while the others are going to be more enemies. So with enemies, I think a really common, effective communication pattern could be simply asking more questions. This is an example of enemy means they're starting at a different territory. So bridging that gap, like we were speaking about previously, is going to be much more simple. And also personality-wise, people, I think, sometimes prefer suggestions while others prefer questions, right? Yeah. So that's, again, going to just be on you with trial and error. So
yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I like talking about enemies like that, where it's like, we're in a game where I'm playing VarrakS and you're playing Elevir, or, Esper, I forget the name of the commander, Cephras, I think was what it was. How do you like have this, like, obviously you guys are going to be fundamentally opposed this game. It's going to be super hard for you to work together, but you can still have like a human relationship, and you can still have a positive thing where it's like, they might be focusing you too much and not seeing that blue farm is obviously winning the game because they've, mentally just been like, oh, the VarrakS bad, like my deck counter VarrakS, without understanding like a blue farm that's drawing a lot of cards is going to just bounce their stacks pieces and win at instant speed, or Rog Thras, for example. Yeah.
So there's a great quote actually from, oh my gosh, wow, this is going to tell you guys all about my upbringing, I guess, but John Quincy Adams, the 4th president of the United States of America, baby. There's a quote where essentially he was saying, like, the duty is ours, but then the results are God's. You can imply that here, like sans religion, or pro, whatever you want to do. In that,
you pick.
It's going to be on you. Yeah, right, sure. It's going to be on you to just ask the questions and make the attempt. Ultimately, you do have to understand that in a 4-player game, there are going to be instances where you did what you could. You shot your shot. What I think the healthy thing to focus on is where improvements of the delivery and performance of your own act could have even moved up 0.5%. Right. So in a pod where it's as intense as a stacks player versus, VarrakS and such, I mean, not very much you can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, they're going to try to do their angle and we're going to try to do ours. Luckily, my deck is way better. So, like,
you got that going for you.
Cephras is sick.
Yeah, Cephras is sick.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think we all want the same thing, which is simply just winning the game. Or we might have just signed up for different types of vehicles and how we're going to get there.
Totally. Yeah. We got the bruiser, we got the speed car, we got the, engine with no fucking plating around it. It's just like, just a go button and holding on.
VarrakS that car.
Yeah, VarrakS that car. Yeah, totally agree. I want to shift this into in-game. So once we've sort of established a vibe, like we've set the narrative for ourselves, we've said like, I'm going to create this kind of game where I'm going to be open with my opponents. I'm going to have honest conversations. I want to feel like they can talk to me. Like, that's the big thing about this opening part is I want to feel like my opponents are comfortable talking to me about anything in this game. Then we start moving into the dynamics of the game. And you have a very fun theory that I would love to hear you explain and kind of tell the viewers more about, like, where you came up with this and kind of how it comes into fruition in the games we're playing.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I certainly did not come up with this myself, but it is an idea within game theory that is Vulture theory specifically.
Yeah.
It can very simply be broken down to in that when there's one player that's further behind than others, you're actually going to be less likely to be interacting with them. Whereas when you feel like there's one player that's just so far leagues ahead of the rest of the table and such a larger threat that you're going to feel like you need to multiply your own resources to stop what they're doing. And gosh darn it, there's another Settlers of Catan reference.
Yeah. It's all settlers.
We're trying to avoid it. Oh, no.
All roads lead to Catan.
Yes. I think where this could be very practically implemented in terms of like emotional intelligence and cEDH specifically is you can almost take other formats within Magic and just ask the question, who is the beatdown? But in the context of that can change at a very fast pace.
Yep.
A great example is the guy with the Heuristic Study that just drew 20 cards going into his turn is clearly the largest threat. That is all true up until you're in their upkeep and there's a Silence on the stack or there's a Born on the stack or there's something that, these high impact spells we play in a cracked format. So that's why I think that this Vulture theory can really be relevant. Where in casual games, actually, we can almost learn from this, where there's an idea of you want to fly as close to the sun without actually being the largest threat. Otherwise, your board gets wiped. I mean, that's also true here in which, no one should be allowing Kinnan to have their 5th Heuristic Study.
That is
way too close to the sun. That is a lost game. Yes.
Yeah, that's in the sun, actually.
In terms of like even less dramatic than that, if there's one Mystic Remora and there's a misstep versus 2 Mystic Remoras and you only have 1 misstep, it no longer makes sense for you to counter both because the game is at an equilibrium.
Yeah.
Vulture theory looks at the idea of, and this specifically applies a lot into the Turbo decks, the RAL, the ROG size. Vulture theory is just imminent against these players' favor in the earlier turns, and then can kind of flip later on where it should, if everybody understands formats and all the different archetypes and metas and where brewing is at mostly, should be flipping to Blue Farm, to Meshi, to Kinnan, and then that's also going to be your responsibility to communicate that to your opponents and then ask if they agree.
Yeah, it's being perpetually aware of threat assessment and being able to communicate that using emotional intelligence with your opponents and understanding it yourself. So this can happen when you're the most threatening. It can happen when someone else is looking really threatening. And a big point that I want to mention here and that I really want to highlight and highlight the importance of is that this should not just be deflection. Like this should not just be like, oh, I'm in a good spot, I'm going to deflect. Like a big part of this for me is acknowledge where I'm at, be like, I'm in a good spot. I got a Heuristic Study, I got a Tithe. That's right where I want to be. I'm in my pocket right now. But there's a Rog Thras who has 2 Biomancer's Familiars and they have 25 mana, right? So it's like, I'm good, I'm in a good spot, but this person is also in a good spot. And based on my information, my cards in hand, I am going to be much easier to stop than them. Like it may be a lost game if we don't deal with them very, very soon. So you have to get your point across without just being like fear-mongering someone else. That's the big thing. I think fear-mongering is not what we're trying to say here, and it's not what you should be doing in cEDH. Acknowledge also being able to look at other people. Doing both.
I think you can add to that as well because I've personally absolutely experienced this in a few tournament games throughout my years. But the idea of knowing what your opponents want at the end of the day, they either want a victory or if the game is completely lost, they want a draw.
Yeah.
And where this can be tie into what you just mentioned is, you're in a game state where you got a Heuristic and a Tithe, but then also Thrasios has 2 Biomancers, 25 mana. To those players 3 and 4, they are fucked.
Yeah, regardless.
So if you can utilize, but if you're able to identify that players 3 and 4 feel so fucked that all they want is just out and a draw and they will walk away happy, you may be able to begin emotionally, with your emotional intelligence that you've been building up, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging these things, leveraging what your other players want, because maybe player 3 is holding on to this like random swords and maybe player 4 is holding on to this random split second, type shit. You don't know, man. cEDH is wild.
Yeah.
So
extrapate.
If you're able to basically... if you're able to utilize this Vulture theory in such a dramatic way, that you create an absolute enemy. And I define it as an absolute enemy as someone that you just will not lose to. This oftentimes, or most oftentimes, happens when player A and player B get into a little bit of a ruffle, and then player C gets into it, and player C agrees with, let's say, player A. You can then leverage that and identify that even though players A and B in this example are both going to fuck you, you might as well try to join the bandwagon and vulture against player B to find a more favorable outcome to you than what may otherwise be available.
Totally agree. Yeah. I think we do unfortunately have to wrap here, and there's a lot more to be talked about. And this is just kind of, again, we're just doing little steps here. And that's the big thing that I want to focus on, is each of these videos is a little step in understanding of us kind of communicating how we think about the game. And I think it's good to do it this way instead of just being like, here's a 4-hour discussion on politics and it's incredibly comprehensive and it's everything you need to know. And it's like, let's just walk this little path together and kind of, we get your feedback. We understand where you're coming from. We can respond and say, here's how we think about the game and, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, this was a super fun little conversation. And I'm sure we can kind of expand on this each month or every few weeks into how it's continuing. Right.
Totally. It's funny. I heard this earlier this exact week that people that are very excited about a presentation will oftentimes over prepare to the amount where you could cut it in half and still have way too much content and likely even cut it in half again. Like a fourth of the content that you have imagined or swirling around in your brain that you're excited to chat about. So yeah, series, I think, is the move.
Oh yeah. Sweet. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. I'm pumped to have you on next time. If anyone has questions about this, if you're like, all right, this was useful, but you made no sense and you guys talked mumbo jumbo for 45 minutes, we want to know. We want to know how to make this really valuable and what specifically can be helpful. So let us know in the comments. Reach out to Kevin or I. I'll have all of your information, Kevin, plugged so that people can reach out and find your Twitter. And yeah, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
You bet. See you guys.
Hell yeah. All right. Bye for now.
Thanks to Kevin for coming back on and talking with us and continuing this conversation about how we can make politics in our cEDH games just cleaner, more efficient, and more effective. So that way we can all have more games and have more fun and less feels bad. If you want more of Kevin, just go ahead and follow him on Twitter. We're going to have descriptions down below. Keep an eye out on what he's doing with Team Zen. There are a couple organizations out here that we really, really respect and we really appreciate for sharing our goal of expanding and growing the cEDH community. And Zen is one of them. On to the giveaway. If you want to win a giveaway just like this person here in the comments, just go ahead and leave a comment yourself, like and subscribe and follow the channel. And a great comment that we'll be looking at is some questions or some ideas for the next time when we get VarrakS on to see what more you guys want to hear about. What politic angles, what situations you want to understand, what are some situations that you'd like to have some more insight on. The giveaway this week is going to be a token pack from Clone Gwyn or Camsit. He's a good friend of the channel. He's helped us out a couple of times already, so just go ahead and show him some love. And worst comes to worst, just get a free pack and have some good tokens for your cEDH games. And of course, you guys already know, if you want some more personalized one-to-one applications of some of the ideas that we talk about on the channel, reach out to Zach for coaching. All the information and the contact stuff that you'll need is linked in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you back here in probably a couple days, actually. Ciao!